Hello and welcome to the Billion Dollar Broker Podcast. My name is Ross LeCane. I'm bringing my 25 years industry experience together with leading experts around the globe to give you the insights on how to live a better life and grow a profitable mortgage broking business that you are proud of. Welcome to another edition of the Billion Dollar Broker Podcast. I'm Ross LeCane. Today I've got an amazing guest with us, someone who's done particularly well in his new venture, Crew Financial. We've got Rick Garner, the CEO and founder of Crew Financial with us. So welcome, Rick.
Good to see you, Ross.
So, you're an award-winning broker. You won many awards with SFG. I know you've been nominated for many industry awards. And we were talking just off air before we got on how, every year you've grown between 100 to 200%. And, you were saying that that's planned. So there's a lot of value that we're going to unpack today. But I'm keen to, you mentioned to me, you got started about 20 years ago, like in 2002. So tell me a bit about your early days in broking, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got started with Crew.
Well, awesome to be chatting to you today, Ross. And hopefully we can come up with some good ideas to share around the groups and get some good stuff out there. Started 20 years ago. I'm actually a financial planner by trade. And I spent around 12 years as primarily an independent financial advisor, around my own FSL and all this kind of thing. And that was very exciting. But alongside that, we ran a mortgage broking business. And at that stage, I was tied up with AFG and them for about 10 or 12 years or something. But so started as a planner. And my background, of course, is a commercial airline pilot. And so I guess from the onset in my business career, I looked at everything from a process point of view, because one of the things that the airlines do really, really well is they have like an operations manual for everything. And when I started out in wealth advice, the first thing I went to my manager, my BDM manager, area manager, really nice guy, and I said, okay, so where's our instruction manual, our process book, and he said to me, pointed to the white pages, he said, look, the opportunity book is just down there, go for it. And so the opportunity book, I don't even know that, especially young people, they don't even know what a white pages is anymore. But so I started with the opportunity book, and I found that there was just, there was sort of nobody really guiding anybody. And all I could do was sort of really rely on my own thought processes of, okay, well, in the airplane, I'd do this, and there'd be another step, and there'd be a checklist, and there'd be a pathway, and there'd be whatever. And so I started approaching my, financial planning, in this case, with that mindset. And because I guess I'm one of those guys, a square peg in a square hole kind of thing. I don't really think in pretty pictures or bright colors. It's all straight lines. So I'm a very boring person unless we're out having at the football or something. But anyway, so went with that, and it was cool, because when you don't know what you don't know, and you're trying to piece together what you think things should look like, it's just really haphazard, and it's difficult to really get a clear pathway, and everything's just done disjointedly, and that really wasn't working for me. So anyway, I designed my own sort of roadmap, and even though there were some sort of compliance manuals and this kind of thing, basic compliance information to adhere to, really nobody had a turnkey business operating system. And that made me read, and I'm sure you've read this book, The E-Myth, Michael Gerber, very old book now.
Yeah, I love that one. I'm a big fan.
It's a cracker. And I was really, really interested in, obviously, McDonald's. I mean, McDonald's has been looked at for decades now as for sales process engineering. There's another guy I went to as well, and he was probably a bit like you, but 20 years ago, Ross. And this guy talked about sales process engineering. You might remember back in the days when marketing events were done, and there would be people turning up, like hundreds of people turning up to an advert or something in the paper about some kind of wealth seminar. Do you remember those?
Yeah, I do. I probably attended a few, yeah.
Yeah, I went to a few of those myself. Anyway, so I went to this guy's course, and he was talking to me about, because I was just basically a one-man band. I knew I wanted to make money, and I didn't know how, other than selling, life insurance policies or or superannuation funds or the like. Anyway, so went to his workshop. I think it was $400, and he said to me something really profoundly stuck. And he says, "Listen, what you need is scalability." Didn't even know what the word meant, and he says, for you to do what we're talking about here, you would need to have, a huge marketing funnel. You need to then have all your process all mapped out really, really succinctly, and then you'd have to have your product, and you've got to have all the salespeople there, and you've got to have all this stuff to handle and cater to this volume. He said, the minute you try and do something on your own, it's just going to implode and it won't work. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting advice. And then I looked at the budget required to actually put that together, because he gave me some pointers, and it was just unattainable. It was so much money. Obviously, though, if you got it right, you could absolutely make a truckload and be really successful. However, at the one-man operator level, it's sort of, really starting in this industry, it just really wasn't practical. So we just parked that thought process. Then what I went about doing is, in my financial planning business, setting about a structure and then organising that as a basically templating all of our correspondences, templating our customer experience, and that actually was probably one of the biggest things. So I templated what my value proposition was going to be, and we put it in this quite a well done PowerPoint presentation, which we present in front of clients, of course, and we talk about what we were going to do, and that was going to be, to improve their wealth advice, you take care of their superannuation, get them into an investment property, refinance their mortgages, then go and take care of their life insurances, fix those up, maybe sort of a self-managed fund, centralize it into a centralized cash management account. And so what we had basically was the bank managers, or the CommBank's Nirvana, which was about 8 products per customer, very sticky clients, and very satisfied people who had diversified product sets with fragmentation across different financial institutions. So the relationship stayed with us. So it's all sounding pretty good, and we're doing really, really well, probably earning anything from 20 to 40,000 per client. And I do 50 or 60 of those a year. Now, and all predominantly high net worth customers. Now, or moderately affluent, people who are going in a positive direction. There was one big problem with that, though, Ross, and the problem was it was in fact so successful that that I didn't realise what I was doing to myself, and that was I was ending up creating a scenario where everything was centralised around one person, and that one person was me. And that caused other problems and frictions in my life, difficulty with marriage and children, because when you've got so much, penetration into somebody's, particularly their financial life, well, when the phone rings and they need to talk to you about it, you better answer it, right? So that was very difficult, and there's really no way of extracting yourself out of that. So even I had a small team, but one of the things that really sort of jumped out of that was, yes, we had a funnel that worked effectively. We had a sales process, which was really, really good. We had a compelling value proposition that worked really, really well. Successful experiences for the clients, so excellent outcomes, but really not the correct level of infrastructure to support what was going on.
Yeah. So I mean, if I just pause for a minute there and look back at, that in terms of, I love some of the things that you were talking about in terms of the fact that, within the financial planning business, you in that PowerPoint presentation, you highlighted what that customer journey looked like, right?
Absolutely, yeah. From end to end, yeah.
Yeah, and I was speaking one of my coaching things, a guy by the name of Dean Jackson, and what he was talking about was pre-baking the cookies, right? So rather than opening your fridge door and saying, hey, look, here are all the products that I've got in my financial planning, which one do you want? You put it in a presentation, which is like pre-baking the cookies, right? This is what we do. This is how we do it. would you like it, right? And put it on a tray and give it to, oh, yes, please, right? Which
Yeah,
meant
absolutely.
you then had a client, as you said, that was a $20,000 to $30,000 average sale client. You had 50 or 60 of those, which is obviously good revenue. But the thing you
but there is more to it than that, though,
yeah.
Ross. And like, if you're a talker, and some of us are, and it's pretty easy to get sidetracked, right, and go all over the place. And I really needed an anchor because I was the primary salesperson, to really keep me on track and on target, to talk about the things that are important instead of deviating off and talking about things that are irrelevant and silly, and keeping it all on the train tracks. And that really served as a brilliant anchor. It kept everything on time. It kept it all professional. And I think it's an essential thing. In fact, we're actually developing that right now for use for my current brokers, and so that they've got something that really articulates to our new clients in the lending space all those things we just discussed.
Yeah, it's something that I do in my program, where we've done a 6-week thing on relationship sales that step people through that step by step, because it's so important to take the customers on a journey. And, you know, I know you're big on that in terms of customer experience and, you know, building that in, because I think a lot of brokers are transactional and they don't focus on that customer experience. But I know that's something that you guys, and, you know, when you obviously went into Crew, that's something that you're big on and that we've discussed at length.
Absolutely. No, it's really, really important, because you got to decide whether you want to just have it. Well, you can have that, basically making the same investment to have the one-off transaction. And it's, everybody knows, we've talked about this at multiple PD days, about the cost of acquisition of a client is much, much cheaper if you just keep, you know, reworking the existing client base.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easier. It takes less time. You got less risk of runoff, and they're generally going to take your advice the first time around. It'll be a simpler, smoother transaction. So I think it really is something that's missed, particularly in lending.
Definitely. And I, you know, from property investment, that was a big attraction to me to go into that property investment space. I'm like, I can do multiple transactions with the one client, or I can try to, you know, keep finding new clients. I'd much rather someone that transacts multiple times a year than have to go chasing new clients. So go deeper with the same clients that you've got. So in terms of, you know, that was your financial planning model, and you got to that point where you go, like, oh shit, I'm stuck. I'm a victim of my success.
Absolutely.
This is working really, really well, but I'm finding it hard to scale. So what came next?
Well, eventually, I obviously had quite a few people working for me as admin assistants, and there's always the problem of training people from scratch. So I had quite a lot of people that I trained from scratch, but also I had some people who were already previously experienced. One lady who was basically my PA, but also she was an ex-banker, and she was really, really good. And she really would take a lot of that load off me. In the end, and after doing it for about 12, 14 years or something, I did actually burn out. I'd had enough. And so I guess that really brings about the notion of sustainability, right? Because no matter who you are, you're going to eventually run out of steam at some point unless you're set up correctly. And that's something I'm really mindful of in the current business that we're doing. Don't want to fall down into that trap again. And so, getting I guess the right team, and if you could, it's worth paying more money for experience, and having that learning curve be much flatter than a new trainee, somebody off the street who seems cheap, but their curve is like this, and you can get a better return on investment faster using better quality labor, even though it's more expensive.
Yeah,
I think that's a big point. And also, like in Australia, wages are expensive anyway. I mean, you'd struggle to get anybody in this sort of industry for less than about 60,000. and to get somebody who's probably good might be 80 or 90. So it's about a 30% increase in cost, but you get tenfold the return on investment just from an effectiveness, productivity side of things.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And in terms of we'll get to that, and I'm keen to dig into, because I know you had the full team offshore, and then you've recently changed that in-house. But in terms of we sort of started to touch on the sort of start of Crew Financial, so I'm keen to let people hear the story of how that sort of came about.
Well, what happened was I'd taken a break out of finance for a few years, and obviously I had lots of people. I knew lots of people who were clients formerly and family, and everybody kept asking me about, can I do their mortgage, or can I do this, or tell me about this, or tell me about that. And I just I was having a bit of a rest, and in my rest I was just being a commercial airline pilot, as you do. Right. And but anyway, I decided I couldn't really avoid these calls any longer, and I thought, oh well, look, why not set up something where I just sort of do the odd loan here and there for maybe a few pilots and friends, and maybe the odd family member, and I just want to do something little, and just maybe a little bit of pocket money on the side, Ross, just to supplement my income, just for something fun. And I really didn't intend it to get big, but obviously it did. Now, one of the first considerations, if you're me running my life, is, well, I already have another job, right? And that's to fly airplanes. I've actually got 3 jobs, but anyway, so I had to think from the very beginning, from the first day, how am I going to be able to deliver a timely experience for people that's good quality, that can still operate when I'm off doing something else? And that was the premise. I thought, okay, I want to earn this little bit of money. I didn't know how much it was going to be. I had to have some skills, right? I thought, well, it's appropriate to deploy those and earn revenue from them. But I needed to not take up all my life. And I knew what it was like before, from being a finance broker, a financial planner, insurance advisor, stockbroker, all that sort of stuff, right? And so we've got that sitting in the back of our mind. So okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to find a way of doing it that's really, really quick and easy. And I don't want to look bad. I also want to look good doing this job. I don't want to look like every Tom, Dick or Harry home loans who we wanted to do something special, because the clientele that we talk to have high expectations around service delivery, right? So in my pilot colleagues, they're but predominantly high net worth customers. All the private banks would generally love to have them as clients. So if I'm going to talk to that marketplace, well then, and that's the market that I'm in, then we need to.
I think that's an important point, right? You've got to have your product suit your market, right? And you've got to be an expert in serving your chosen market. And you've chosen, obviously, the name is Crew Financial. You've chosen flight crew and staff in the airline industry. And again, so if you're going to serve that niche, your business had better be set up to serve them in the way that they want to be served. And
100%. Actually, can I just a little side jump, an adjunct there, right? So even coming up with the name, I thought, well, before our wealth advice company, it had a name, it was Reliance Capital, and I felt that it wasn't really, I wanted to be a high value brand, but the problem was it really wasn't talking to anything. And I thought, this time, how about this? How about we don't be everything home loans or everybody home loans? How about I just be these people home loans, right? And hence, that's why I thought, well, this will make my marketing message much, much easier, right? If I know who I'm talking to, and I can design a value proposition around that niche, or a niche, any niche, doesn't matter what it is, then your messaging becomes much simpler, your way of attracting clients becomes simpler, and everything becomes easier. And so that's how we ended up coming to the name. Now, obviously, I'm around Crew a lot. Crew can be adopted to a number of things, but in my community, then it's really easily recognised. So,
yeah,
I
think
that's my little
great
footnote.
point. And in terms of for other brokers, a lot of people think that if they niche their business, they're going to miss out on certain other business. But as you said, I love what you said about when you actually niche and you focus on Crew, which is something you're a part of. It makes everything much simpler. It makes your marketing simpler. It makes the client
everything.
It makes your service proposition easier to create because you know who you're trying to serve. So yeah, by actually having a niche, it is actually makes your business easier.
That's right. Now, having said that, we've actually expanded to a couple of other categories now, but we're still not scattergunning it. We're not just, at least as far as the marketing messaging is concerned, we're keeping it very, very defined. But if you, well, that doesn't mean we can't talk to other people as well, right? So if somebody's mum or somebody's sister calls up, well, of course we can help them, right? But it's just getting back to really the nuts and bolts of it. Is, well, who do we want to talk to, and then everything becomes easier from there.
Yeah, love it.
So back to what we were talking about before, Ross, and that was so I've got this job. I'm busy. I'm flying around, and we need to have a simple way of doing things. And I mentioned this to you before. It's about designing the experience, and so I thought I'd map out. I thought, well, if I wanted to have my socks blown off as far as what I think a good mortgage broking experience would look like, what would that look like? So I started writing it down on paper. I thought, well, I want this to happen then, and then if this to happen, this would look really great. And then we end up with this big list. I thought, okay, well, now how do I effectively execute that? Well, the first thing I got to do is I can't be writing every single email by hand or every single piece of correspondence. If you think about the basics of what a successful mortgage broking experience from a customer's perspective even looks like, well, the number one thing is communication, right? That's first and foremost with everything. So they need to be informed, right? They want to have their expectations set, right? And then if you exceed those expectations, well, they're going to be ecstatic with you, right? It's only a problem if you say something and then deliver something else. So even if you told them it was going to be 2 weeks, just make sure it's less than 2 weeks. But the point is this: you got to specify it, right? So I basically with all my comms pieces, I'd say, righto, this is where we're at. This is what's happening. This is how long it's going to take to come, and this is what's going to happen next. And that is basically the framework of everything that we did. So at every single place where I felt that the customer needed to know something, we would do that. Now, the other thing too is...
So what were those three things? This is where we're at.
This is where we're at. This is where we're going. And this is how long it's going to take. And this is what's happening next.
Okay, beautiful. Love it.
Right? So to really spell that out. And that way no one can ever say that we didn't tell them. Right, really important. But probably the biggest and most important thing is that there is a communications piece that's going down range that is appropriate and timely and touches those key points. The other thing too is like, okay, what kind of collateral do I want? Well, people need to know certain things, right? So having the right collateral go out at the right times, and I'm talking about information pieces here. And so that was something I mapped out as well. So that throughout our process is about 35 touch pieces. Now, in addition to that, it's not just about the messaging itself. It's about how do people want to be engaged with. So if I send you an email, and I know that if I look at my email list, I literally will skim them for 2 seconds. And if I can't get what I need out of it, it's gone. And customers are the same. They're busy people too. They want you to have communicated. And we've also got to find a nice, simple way. So we actually duplicate the process. We have, obviously standard email comms that go out, tell them all these things, have appropriate attachments. And we also have text messages that run out because the open rates, and if you start looking at, open rates for emails, and things about 5% with email, but it's about 99% with text. Yeah. Right. So you've got a short, sharp text that also does those things. Well, then you're almost assured that the message is going to get through to your client. and then they'll look at their now. With mine, some of my texts also will say, please refer to the email I've just sent you, right? So that way our clients are being informed all the way through the process, and that's something that's really key. Most of our clients like efficient use of technology as well, right? So they're technology adopters, and so a lot of the the e-signature platforms that are nice and fast, they like that, and so we've done that as well. But so we designed this customer experience, and at low levels of volume, initially we didn't really need a whole lot of support, and I was with Fast Group at that point, and I was reasonably happy to start with, but what I found is their platform really was unable to deliver what I wanted, right? And it couldn't deliver the efficiency I needed, and so we really needed to change software providers and aggregators, and we moved to a boutique aggregator who was able, Specialist Finance Group, who gave us access to more efficient technology, and that way I could actually build out that customer experience exactly how I wanted to deliver it. And importantly, I call it a lump of plasticine, right? So that plasticine that I can mold and shift and shape around to whatever I desire, and that was really important. So I guess not important if you don't have a mapped out sales process or a sales plan, right? Because you don't know what you don't need. But the minute you want to start automating and you want to start going to the levels that we do, I'd need a whole other person just employed just to write my emails if I was doing it manually, right? So this is where I guess thinking about how you adopt and how you utilize technology in your CRM, that can either cost you or it can make you. And
I think that's an important point, right? So you've got a full-time job as an airline pilot. For a lot of people, that'd be enough. So you're saying, all right, I've started this business. I want to get that fantastic customer experience. I want to serve these high net worth clients the way that they want to be served. And so to do that, from your old experience, you say, look, I can't do it this way anymore. I need a streamlined system process. I need the right tools and technology, and I need to design the process. So you've gone about designing it. You've got your 4 steps. You've got your collateral. You're communicating in terms of ways, that clients want to be communicated via, email, via text, and which has allowed you to then obviously do what you do and ensure that that process gets delivered to the client the way that you want it to be delivered.
100%, because I know that with sort of 1 to 2 man brokers, there's a real resistance to investing in, particularly in wages, right? But you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because somebody's got to go to the effort and sit down and do the mapping out and then writing the content. Somebody's got to do that. Now, you either do it yourself, and if you do that, then you can't be writing deals, or you pay somebody, but it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So somebody has to do something at some point. Now, I was just very fortunate because I had my previous background and I'd seen all the mistakes I'd made years ago. I just knew that before I even really picked up the tools to start getting serious about writing mortgages again, the very first place I started was, what does this look like? Yeah. What does this look like? Who are we talking to? How are we talking to? What do they need? Right? What do we want? And for it to be successful, what does it need to, what shape does it need to be? Right? And then we've got to look at other things like, well, what resourcing do we really need? And is there a better way to do that? So with a lot of the technology platforms out there, and I think this is the wrong way to look at it, by the way, what that we'll do is we'll mask the shortcomings of the technology by adding additional labor. And the first place we'll try and do that is low cost labor, right? So whereas my mindset says, hold on a minute, why do I want to add that labor if I can avoid it at all?
Yeah.
And that, I think that's probably the solution that was given to me by my previous aggregator was, I will just get more staff to do those things. I said, well, this is a ridiculous way of thinking about it. We should be thinking about it the other way. Why don't we improve the platform or the product to deliver this thing so we don't need to employ the staff? And by the way, robots do it better. They do it better than me. And they probably do it better than you too, Ross. They do it better than all of us, right? So they don't complain, they never get sick, and they do it on time. So I think that's probably the first place. And that's been a big thing in the industry, particularly as we've seen a real shift towards outsourcing. And I think that a lot of the outsourcing is not even necessary if you've got the correct IT in place.
Because, and that's an interesting point that I wanted to raise and want you to go into, because you went all in for outsourcing, and, you sort of learnt from your mistakes. So just want to talk through that journey, how you sort of, you went all in on outsourcing and you had your own offshoring team that you managed to, where you are at today.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So, we've had this sort of business which has been, which was really successful in growing, and we've really been leveraging our technology as best we can. Right. And to give some comparison, I think that we could do around $4 million a month per person without support staff. Right. But when you get greater than that, you start seeing the limitations of time really creep in. And so you do need help. So I think the difference between what I'm doing and what a lot of other guys are doing is the need to bring paid external labor is much, much sooner when you don't have an efficient system, obviously, right? So we're able to push that out. And having said that, though, there becomes a point where you need it anyway. And so, yeah, we went down the outsourcing experience. I went and directly recruited my own staff, right? So there are multiple ways of doing it. You can do it through some of the agencies who will usually get graduates, and there's a training burden there's a training program that needs to be put in place. They're not effective brokers or anything. They're admin staff. Now, very smart people, usually in the Philippines or India, and the rate per person when you compare it to domestic labour is very, very low cost, and it'll end up being something around $25,000 a year, Australian, give or take.
Yeah.
And mine are a little bit cheaper, and I was able to get, because I was paying them directly and there's less of a markup for the service provider, I was able to get really, really experienced people. But even with experienced people, what we discovered is you need a huge team to make it really, really work, in my opinion, because you need somebody over there who's able to put out bushfires. And the minute that somebody ends up with their off the train track, so to speak, and they've got a problem which they're not quite sure how to deal with, well, the whole system stops, and they really aren't able to problem solve quite as well as you'd expect a domestic person to.
Yeah, they're
right?
great following the process, but when they are forced to think, and a mortgage business is, a business that, things don't happen correctly, right? We run into turbulence, and we need to know how to steer through it.
Absolutely. And there's just really some cultural issues that stop that. The Asians in particular, they don't want to disappoint their bosses, right? So they'd rather make no decision instead of a decision that could be wrong, because the risk to them of making the wrong decision is worse than doing nothing, right? So that's not a training issue, that's a culture issue. And we would say to the people in our team who, like I said, they were quite experienced, would say, because they'd worked in other outsourcing places before, would say, if you see anything really good at another organisation, well, let us know. But they were really, really reluctant to speak up and to speak their mind. It took a lot. Then, of course, COVID came, and when we started having to deal with, absenteeism because of COVID, we wouldn't allow any of our staff to work from home. There are many organisations that do permit work from home in the Philippines. Now, our position on that was we wouldn't go for it because we didn't like the notion that we just thought that the security risk was too high. And if I told one of my high net worth clients that that their personal information was basically in somebody's lounge room in the Philippines, I'd feel very uncomfortable with that. So that was not something that we were prepared to do. And so the work from home option meant that we had our inability to use it, or our resistance to it, meant that we had some, it was very disjointed, the support that was coming through. And so they were good, provided that everything was exactly perfect all the time.
Yeah. And how many were in your team over there?
5. We had 5. I think you really need probably 3 times that at least. You need 15, and you need probably an Australian person, that would be over there administering that team. So that says you need a huge business to really, really make it hum properly.
Yeah.
Putting square pegs in square holes, they're really good at. But the minute that something strained comes, well, then they're gone, and you need one of us to then deal with it. So, look, you can use them to lighten the load, but it's not a perfect solution. And we disbanded that several months back, and we decided to get experienced people. And
so how many experienced in-house people replaced your team in the Philippines?
Okay, so we wanted a team that was of similar size, right? But we've got 2 ex-bank credit analysts. One was a former team leader at Big Four, and then was a second tier, so a large one that everybody here would know. And 10 plus years in credit. Another person who's the manager of our credit team. She was an ex-broker, also worked as a branch lender in a second tier lender as well, 30 plus years experience, and highly competent. Then we've got a settlements coordinator who's had real estate experience, been in property management and for several years, and so knows the settlements process really, really well. We've actually employed a customer experience person, ex-real estate property manager. I'm not telling everybody to go and get property managers here, by the way. That's just what we did in this instance. But maturity, I think, is key when hiring. So, customer experience person, because post-settlement experience is really important if we want the retention piece. We've got 2 trainees. One person is a compliance officer to make sure all our compliance documents are all there, and that's a very straightforward role. And then we've got a lending support person as well who does lots of pre-fill and does a lot of the work that what would have been done in Manila, but can apply a domestic lens to it. So that's a pretty decent team, and we're looking to add more former bank credit analysts or brokers into our credit analyst team.
Love it.
Yeah, because it's just now if I look at just the burden on me personally, it's gone from being a massive burden where I literally had to micromanage everything to being a team where I can just say, okay, well, this is my intent. This is the commander's intent. I love that thing. It's a military sort of saying. Commander's intent is this, and they know that to achieve the end state of where we want to get to, then they know these things need to happen. I don't need to micromanage that.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think this is key, right? And this is what I find when you've got offshore, you become the conductor, as you said. You've got assistants. You don't have partners in your business. The thing, and I had, and with Aussie, we couldn't have offshoring teams. So in my business within Aussie, we had everyone in-house. And I found that we could create what I called approval solutions partners. And the reason we name them partners is because they become that. You give them, as you said, your commander's intent, and you tell them, and you can empower them to run with that process. And they've got the ability to then, if something goes off the rails, they can make an appropriate decision. They can use their thought processes and take control and do that. I know it was successful in our business. It looks like it's being successful in your business as well.
100%, yeah, because they can apply their lateral thought, they can their experience. I mean, we're paying them because they have experience. We're not paying them to ask me or the other brokers for answers for every single question. Another thing that we did too, and I know you're big on it with the bid notes, because our system's a little bit different, we've created our own new bid notes template, and just simple things. So the broker notes, for example, that we would submit to the bank, we're able to make that be that document be multi-purpose. So we fill out certain fields for our bid compliance, and we also use the same documents for the broker notes that would go to the bank. So we've simplified and streamlined that effort. And one of the things that we did, which is really cool, is we've got a bit of a working group now with our senior credit analyst, a couple of myself and a senior broker, and we go through and review the content in our bid notes or in our broker notes to then look at if it's addressing all the key criteria we need to address, and whether it's answering all the credit analyst questions preemptively to then cut down our RFI count. And it also serves a tertiary purpose, which is for other brokers in the group who are less experienced. It gives them the key pointers of what they need to consider when looking at a deal.
Yeah, exactly right. And it gives them that structure, gives them that template. And yeah, I remember early days from back when I was a credit assessor, we used to have those things, and training up our brokers just with a simple background notes template. And yeah, so important to get those one-touch approvals. So the other thing that we were talking about was in terms of, those areas of waste and sort of things that once you take that helicopter view of your business, you question about, if I should be doing. I know before we jump on the podcast today, you were saying you had some insights around that and sort of looked at a few areas of your business. So yeah, interested for you to share on some of your learnings there.
Yeah, so I guess that's really, it's the way we're approaching everything now. So we talk in our team meetings every week about areas that we can maybe cut down or automate. So the mental process is this: you say, okay, well, do we need it? Like, are we doing something that's actually redundant? And that was something that came to recent revision of our bid notes. We looked at some of the paragraphing. You know what? Actually, this is just fluff and it's just nonsense. It's just words for words' sake. So let's get rid of that. And same deal with some of the touch points that we've had. We've reviewed them over time and said, okay, maybe that's actually no longer relevant or necessary or needed, right? And every single week in our group, we'll consider what needs to be eliminated. So the first thing is this: do we need it at all? Right? If we agree that we still need it, so obviously the best thing to do is cut a process altogether, get rid of it, right? And the second thing is, if we do need it, can we make it faster, right? Can we simplify it? And then finally, think something that's better than that. If we must keep it and we can't simplify it, can we automate it? Right? So, and there's lots of really cool solutions coming out. I know that we're going to be adopting the Sherlock for some of our back office stuff. I know that's getting pretty popular out there at the moment. And that's one of the next things we're implementing across our team, because it'll help with our retention and it'll cut down labour, even though there's a dollar spend for it. What else can I think of? Geez, there's just been so many. Using things that are so simple. I mean, using Outlook for your calendars when there's, the automated meeting tools such as Calendly, and automating that process. It makes you think about, okay, well, what does that need to look like? Okay, when should I put my reminders on? And all these things that help you enhance the look and feel of your business, but you personally don't have to do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Calendly's a great one, right? If you've got the advanced version of Calendly, it can do reminders, text reminders. You can put a series of workflows in it. You can have a free questionnaire that goes out. So many little things, right? In terms of to help you qualify your clients, but to remind them, to get them to show up, to put the Zoom link in it, to do all that sort of stuff. So, that's a.
Well, I mean, there's another one too, Ross. I mean, we actually got our own custom built mobile app recently, and that'll be getting launched to our customers soon. So on the Google Play Store, on the Apple App Store, just to give our customers a smoother way to get access to us, and from there, and obviously things like back channel messages and automated messaging as well. But for them to be able to simply book an appointment through their mobile app, and also keep that bit of extra communication to us. And it's a small point of difference. I think there's a few brokerages out there getting them now, but just little widgets you can add in, things that can, I guess you look at it from the perspective of, can it add value to my customer experience? Can it take away some of my time that I'm spending?
Exactly right. And that's the thing. And, I know when we redid our processes, and we're similar to you, we were constantly looking at it, but I think you're right in terms of what you're saying. You need to put it through the customer's eyes as well, right? Yes, it may make it easier for me, but is it improving the customer experience at the same time, right? So
totally.
Sometimes the things that are easier for us actually makes it difficult and more cumbersome for the client. So I think we've got to put that lens over it as well.
I think an interesting one is a client portal. I know that we have client portals, and that's become very popular in the last few years, but my experience is most customers prefer not to use them. They just want to send us a bunch of documents and have somebody do it for us, do it for them rather. Some people love that, the ability to log in and, type in some information, but I think they're the minority, not the majority. And because most customers still see what we do as something that happens to then to save them time, not for them to be their own data entry clerks, right? So exactly. We've got it there. We've got it, but we were hoping that would be, a couple of years ago, that would be the panacea, and we no longer have to do data entry because the customers are going to do their own. But in reality, that's just not true. And that, I think that comes back to that lens of, well, what does a customer want to do, and what do they want their experience to look like? And in this case, it turns out sitting in their lounge room table and filling out an online fact find actually isn't something that they want to do.
Exactly right. And again, in terms of, I know for myself, it's part of the reason that I loved sort of doing when I do my own loans is it's all done for me, right? It's done for me. I've got, a big property portfolio. Do I want to sit on something like file, invite, and upload? No, just I'm going to send it to you. Yes, I'll use.
Send it to you. You sort it out for me. I don't want to know about that.
Exactly. So as a consumer, I totally get it. So, there's been so much good stuff that you've shared today, right? In terms of that designing the client experience around, automate anything that you possibly can and review it. Your process isn't something you just set and forget. With the changes you've made with your staff, with the changes that you make on a weekly basis, you're constantly looking to refine the old, Kaizen, which is that continuous improvement. You're doing that within your business, really looking to eliminate those areas of waste and really go to optimize your business. So
there's heaps. There's one thing I didn't talk about, Ross, and I thought would be worthy, and that was talking about team structures. Do you want to touch on that now?
Yeah, let's touch on it.
We got time?
Yeah, we got time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, so in my mind, the broker who and a relationship person, right? So we want them to be deployed doing their most productive thing, right? Which is building new relationships and talking to more clients. So how can that be true? How can we be doing that most effective thing if we're all bogged down filling out fact finds and filling out bits of paper? That can't happen, right? So I get this sense across the industry that there's this real resistance to getting other people to do that work for you. If for the quality to be high, I must do it myself, kind of thing. Or I don't want to pay for that because I'm afraid that I'm going to lose that $300 or $400 or whatever it is. But I can tell you absolutely that the minute that we started shedding roles and we started cutting them down into, shelving off the different parts of the job to third parties, it made everything better for everybody in our team.
Yeah.
It meant that we could have part of our life back, and we could have more deals go through, and we can have more a better customer experience. And you know what? You can even have, heaven forbid, a holiday, right? Because the work can still happen when you're not there. And I think that was just back to that thing we were saying right at the beginning of the call. That was my learnings when everything was sort of me-centric around my previous wealth management business. Could never have a holiday. Well, getting the right people in the right team and having that right size means that you can do that. And so I think as a broker, anybody in a brokerage business, I feel that that's what you need to do. And to do that, you need critical mass and scale. Otherwise, you'll perpetually be that slave to not having enough time in the day and doing these 60-hour weeks. And I mean, do we really want to be doing 60-hour weeks, particularly when most of it's just admin anyway? I thought that if you want to be a broker, you're really doing that because you're a people person. You want to talk to people. But do any of us actually get any joy out of doing the admin? I don't think so.
No, definitely not. I think that's a great point, and it's a great point to sort of finish on, because I love what you're saying is the freedom that you get in terms of being able to take holidays, spend time with the family, comes from scale, right? It comes from doing the things that you love and that you enjoy. And, what you've said around designing your process around the ultimate customer experience and then automating it is exactly how you scale. And obviously 100%. Your results in terms of what you've achieved, year on year, in terms of your numbers. So what was the figure that you hit last financial year with you and the team?
Yeah, smidge under 200 mil, 191 point and a bit. And so that it wasn't bad results, particularly considering a lot of my brokers are pretty new to industry brokers. Exactly. But they're able to be really successful because they've got a really good framework behind them that helps them not focus on wasting time on things that actually really don't matter.
Yeah. And all of your crew, all of your brokers are pilots, or most of them are.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, so most of the guys that work with me are actually this is their second job. And if I think about one of my guys did 54 mil, the other guy did 50 mil. Now, considering that they've got another full-time job, that's pretty material, right?
Oh, definitely. A lot of brokers struggle to write that, and that's their full-time gig. And these guys are doing it. It just shows, what you're doing is working. The niche that you spoke about is working for you. And I know you've got big plans, and I know you've got plans to keep on scaling and keep on growing. And, this is just the start. So yeah, I'm excited to see where you can go.
Yeah, there's a lot of positivity going around. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the industry, and there's enough for everybody. Having that abundance mindset, I think, is really important. It's one of those great industries where everybody can win. You just got to get cracking and get your back into it.
Yeah, definitely. So one question I ask everyone, right? If a broker was looking to start to grow their business and to scale, what is the one tip that you think would be most important for them to focus on?
Well, I think the one tip is the one thing that I did, which is design how you want to deliver your service. That's the very first thing. I think it's the foundational component to everything. Because I think, particularly in broking, people just say, "Oh, I just want to write loans for people." Okay, well, that's great. We all just want to write loans. Well, that's just really that's just the product or the service we provide, right? But the foundational question you've got to ask yourself is, well, how am I going to do that?
Exactly right. Exactly
and
right.
And if you start at that place, and you can change how that looks like over time, but if you start at that place, that gives you some clarity around, okay, well, if I'm going to do these things, well, then I'm going to need this resource. I'm going to need these products. I'm going to need these people. I'm going to need this technology. I'm going to need these things. That answers a lot of questions.
I love that. And I love how you're putting the client then in the center of the journey, right? So
that's,
you're like,
100%.
You're starting, rather, a lot of people, start at this end and go, okay, I want to, move the widget from one end to the other without putting the client in the middle of the journey, and see it as a transaction. So I love that you, put that in. It's great. All right. Well, thanks, Rick. It's been great. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. I'm sure you've provided lots of pearls of wisdom for all the listeners. So yeah,
we're all learners, Ross. I'm still learning.
Oh, I'm a lifelong learner, mate. I'm a student at heart. And again, one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is because, I continue to learn and I've definitely learned some stuff from you today. That's for sure.
No, wonderful. It's been a pleasure to be here. And I hope that somebody gets some value out of what we've been talking about.
Beautiful. Well, this has been another episode of the $1 Billion Broker podcast. So join by subscribing on one of your podcast platforms, or go to billiondolarbroker.com.au and you'll find all the podcasts there. If you want to also become a part of our community, join our private Facebook group, the $1 Billion Broker. If you'd like to get in touch, again, go to our website, thebilliondolarbroker.com.au, book an appointment, and we'll love to see if we can help you in one of our coaching programs. Thanks, and I'll catch you next time.